What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jerrett Wilson, joined by Rachel Mogan.
How's it going?
It's going well. And joined to my left, I haven't had to do the directional thing in a while.
Yeah,
it's
this
throwing
is
me off a
weird.
little bit. But joined to my left, my good friend, buddy Michael Koploy.
How you doing?
And then, joined through the power of the internet, Fox from Des and Fox Plays.
Hi, guys.
Hey, glad to have you on. And so today we are having this roundtable discussion to do a full-on review of God of War. Michael has recently finished it. Fox has recently finished it. I've recently finished it. Mogan hasn't played it, but she's going to be here to help kind of like moderate and guide the conversation.
We'll keep you on the path of righteousness.
Exactly. So she's going to keep us. She's going to keep us sane. But in case you did not know, Team Chat Podcast is a weekly video game show where we talk about obviously games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. New episodes come out every Tuesday at 9 a.m. You can watch the episodes on YouTube or listen on audio across many different podcast services around the web. We can also watch the episodes on Twitch. But you can check out the full list at teamchatpodcast.com/where to listen, where you can see the full list of where we are available. If you have any questions, comments, general feedback, you can email us at teamchatpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on all the different social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Finally, we are a completely listener-supported show, so if you would really like to, because you love us and love what we're producing, you can head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/teamchatpodcast, where it's for as little as $1 a month. You can support the show, and in return, we will give you a cool perk, like getting the episodes early before their general Tuesday release. Again, that's patreon.com/teamchatpodcast. All right, and another quick bit of updates before we get into this. We have 1 week left in our PS4 giveaway. Again, we are giving away a used, it's Mogan's old one, but fully cleaned and professionally ready to go Glacier White PS4. So
500 gigs.
Yeah, 500 gigs, internal storage, all that stuff. So if you want to have a chance of winning that, head over to our social media, find the link there. We also have a page on our website, teamchatpodcast.com/PS4 giveaway, where you can find the link and all that to enter. So got a week. So contest ends July 31st.
Kevin needs a good home, you guys. Make sure he goes somewhere where he'll be loved
Kevin the PlayStation.
and feel safe.
Yes.
I want him to feel safe.
Yes, he does need a good home.
I told the guy at the cleaning service, I was like, this is Kevin. And he kind of gave me a blank stare, and then he was like, okay. And I was
You're one of those people who
yeah, and then I was
names
like, and he's been replaced by Gertrude, and that made him laugh. he didn't think Kevin was funny, but he thought Gertrude was pretty funny.
Nice. All right, well, before we get into our main topic, let's do a quick, brief introduction. So I know Michael's been on before, but still, give another quick intro of to you and your gaming history or whatever.
Yeah. So, Michael, glad to be here. In terms of my gaming preferences, so God of War was actually something that's a little rare for me. I don't really like hard games. I like the more easier, like very... I admitted this to Jerrett last night. I've been playing Stardew Valley.
I've been getting raucous calls from Fuchsia and Ark, two of our patrons, for me to play Stardew Valley. I've heard a lot of good things about it. Yeah, everybody raves about it.
I feel like I'm playing Farmville, but it's okay.
But better.
So, yeah, exactly.
Don't feel the social stigma.
But yeah, like all kinds of games. I guess more like adventure, RPG, those kinds of games. But God of War was great for me, so happy to talk about it.
Awesome. And then now, Fox, you and I met we were both on a episode of the Bottle Rocket Gaming's Defective Discourse show a few weeks ago.
Right.
Where we made that intro, where we were able to meet each other. So give a quick intro about you, your show, what you do with Des, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so we have a YouTube channel called Des and Fox Play. It's myself and another guy named Des, and we both have basically been lifelong video game players. I don't know what the word,
Gamers?
We've been playing video games. I've been playing since I was definitely since I was like 5 when I played Wolfenstein 3D on my uncle's PC.
Nice.
But then really got in with the N64 and definitely with the PS2. So I've been playing all my life, and we have now we have a podcast as well on our YouTube channel where we talk about anything related to movies or comics or video games or I don't know, whatever we can come up with. It's called The Nerdy Gritty. But mostly our YouTube channel is Let's Plays. We have, games where I play on my own, where Des will play on his own, where it's Des and Fox play, where we'll team up and do some co-op or whatever we can find. Personally, God of War is basically right up my alley. Between the two of us, I'm kind of more the AAA, big, giant game guy. He's got 3 kids and less time in his life. So he plays more of the indie, shorter games. For example, his game of the year last year was Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice.
I still need to get to that.
Kind of rides that line, but yeah, so that's where he focuses. But God of War is really, like, I was looking forward to it from frame one of that E3 trailer that they showed. I was all about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I remember, too, I was, like, really excited when we got talking about when we were recording with BRG, and, like, I was like, oh, yeah, no, Fox has got to come on, is because we were on whatever we were talking about on that episode with, like, mobile gaming and different stuff like that. You were talking about how, you know, you believe video games are art and all this other stuff, and I was like, oh, my God. Man after my own heart. So I was like, this is going to be good. This is going to be a good conversation. Well, so yeah, if you were interested in checking them out, go and do that. So I've really enjoyed the conversations that we've had with Fox so far, and really liked what I've seen of their content too. So check it out. But without further ado, let's get into this review, because God of War is a big game. Lots to talk about. Lots of moments. Now, with our reviews, as we're going to spend the first few minutes doing a spoiler-free section. So this is where we're going to talk about nothing big story-wise. We don't want to ruin that for people who are looking forward to playing this game and haven't got around to it yet, so we don't want to do anything that's going to hinder that your enjoyment of this experience. So we're going to talk about non-spoiler things. Second half of the show will be full-on spoilers, where we'll talk about various parts of the game, story beats, oh shit moments, sad moments, whatever we want to talk about. And that's what we'll do in the second part. But we will give you a warning before we jump in.
Yes.
But I say we spring it on it.
Just be like,
just surprise, here it is.
Give the end spoilers.
It's been
Open
out a
that
while.
gate with a big
it's been out since April.
We'll still not brag on ourselves whenever we spoil things that from 5 years ago.
I know, we feel bad.
Sometimes we'll still talk about The Last of Us. It's like, oh man, should I say that though? It's a pretty big spoiler. And it's like,
because
that's
Last of Us
really
is so
old
good.
game.
Right.
So, but anyway, so yeah. Well, for those who are not aware, God of War, it was made by Sony Santa Monica, directed by Cory Barlog, and is the fourth. Well, I don't know. Would you call it the fourth one, or would it really be like the fifth one? Because there's the God of War 1, 2, and 3, the main trilogy. Then there's Ascension. Then there's this one. But then there were also the two games on handheld, Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. So that's technically seventh game?
Yeah.
So
let's put it this way. Any God of War installment that the majority of the populace has voluntarily forgotten is not a real God of War. So there's four. So there's 1, 2, 3, and there's 4.
I think
all the others
general
are fake news.
I feel like Ascension is kind of just like, because it's kind of almost a prologue-ish story to 1.
Yeah, it's a prequel.
Yeah.
So continuity-wise, this new one is definitely 4.
4. Okay.
As far as the chronological order goes, the rest of them are before 1.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll go with that one then. It is officially God of War 4. But anyway, Cory Barlog, who actually was the director of God of War 2, came back to do God of War after taking a pretty big hiatus from the series and doing some other things around. But so obviously, the big thing about this game and what immediately sets off as setting it apart is the third-person perspective of the game is different. Sure. You know, the whole tone, whole look, and everything is completely different from the original God of Wars, which is a bold choice, I feel like, in any instance to really deviate that much on such an established series. But honestly, I mean, I loved it. I thought it was the breath of fresh air the series needed. I mean, obviously, it'd been a long time. God of War 3 came out in 2010, so it's been a long time since we've had a big, like, major installment in the series. And, I mean, right off the bat, I'll just say it hit all the right notes for me. So what did you guys think? Just kind of like an overall.
For me, actually, so it was my first game in the series. I hadn't played any of the previous games.
Nice, coming in fresh.
I knew of them, and I actually looked up a couple on YouTube to see the older games, and they seemed a little bit outdated. So I was like, you know what? I could go and try to play all the games, or I'll just play the new one, which is the shiny, fun thing.
Man, you really need to give Jerrett lessons because he feels like he always has to go back and play every previous installment.
Yeah,
and all that does is
Fox and I are best friends right now.
It just adds to his backlog, and then he never gets to play the new one.
Yeah, with these kinds of things, it's like I'll Spark Note it. Like I'll read the Wikipedia summary, I'll look at whatever the summary is, and I'll watch a couple YouTube videos, and I feel pretty good about playing.
I will say I do usually try to do that with the shorter games like God of War. I tried to do it with the Witcher series and was like, no, I can't wait. I got to get to Witcher 3.
Yeah. Your life's going to fall apart.
Yeah, so I was just like, no, I can't hold off playing Witcher 3 anymore. But yeah, so Fox, what were your like initial impressions and like overall?
Oh, I think you hit the nail on the head when it was a breath of fresh air. To me, like basically in any industry right now, movies especially, and then video games as well, with like remakes and remasters and reboots and sequels 20 years later that nobody really asked for, especially in the movie industry. When you're gonna continue a series that like has already been established and could very well just stand on its own and not be touched, if you're gonna bring something in, like do it again, then do something new.
Right.
Like, bring something new to the table. Don't just make it feel like you're doing God of War again. And so I think it hit that nail on the head, like perfect. Like, yeah, this is God of War. That's Kratos. Like, I remember him, but also both visually, mechanically, story-wise, this is something new. So it kind of rode that line exactly how it needed to, and it was amazing.
Because there were plenty of callbacks to the original games, I felt like, especially in like environmental puzzles, like they held those over from previous games. Combat, while new, had that familiar feel to it of I feel like the older God of War games rode slightly more towards button mashing. Whereas this one felt like a slightly more controlled, which then, in a sense, also plays very well into this game where we're getting a more mature, calmed Kratos. So it's kind of like it's like anything new with the game can easily be explained as, oh, it's because Kratos is a different Kratos. He's still Kratos, but he's different than how you left him in God of War 3.
Yeah, he's old AF now.
Yeah. So,
I felt like the beauty of it was, depending on so Michael, I mean, I can't speak for you obviously, but in my mind, depending on what games you've played in the series, basically changes what character you identify as in it. So if you haven't played 1, 2, and 3, and you don't know about what Kratos has done before, then you're kind of closer to Atreus, like asking these questions about your mysterious, terrifying father. And if you have, then you are identifying as Kratos, deciding whether or not you should tell your son about your terrifying past. Like, I thought it was just beautiful because anybody could come into it and immediately enjoy it mechanically and also have an emotional resonance with one or two of the either one of the characters.
Yeah, and for someone who was new to the series, knew it took place originally in more Greek mythology, moving more into Norse mythology, it felt really natural to me. Again, like I don't have the in-depth experience, but there wasn't anything in it where I was like, this is shoehorned, this is a reboot. Like, it just felt like a normal story.
Yeah. So one thing then I would ask is, did you ever feel lost? Because obviously Fox and I have like the background, but was there ever a point where you're like, I don't know what's going on, or I don't understand why this is important?
I mean, overall,
without trying, again, no spoilers yet, but just like overall.
I thought the story was a really powerful part of the game, but at the end of the day, I also just like pushing, I wasn't mashing buttons, I was a little more controlled, but the fighting mechanics and the actual game itself was so fun that there were certainly moments where I was like, I'm not quite sure where this is going, but that was okay.
Yeah.
And I was okay with kind of like going on that journey. So yeah, maybe it's associating more with Atreus, but it was just kind of, I was along for the ride and I'd figured, okay, this is a little unclear, but I'm sure they'll explain it later. So I'll go with it.
Yeah. Very good point. So a little extra background on this. So another big change is that the voice of Kratos was changed
to a way better one. I don't know what the previous one sounded like, but now that I've figured out that the voice actor is Teal'c from Stargate SG-1,
I know
the greatest character,
the guy with the eye on it.
It's the guy with the thing on his forehead. He was one of the what are they called? The Gould. He was one of the soldiers for the Gould, but then like the SG-1 team, they kind of saved him and made him be on their team. It's awesome.
So better voice actor. You guys like the new one?
So Terrence T.C. Carson was the original voice. Christopher Judge is the new voice of Kratos.
Christopher Judge.
I haven't watched any Stargate SG-1 or whatever like that.
You're missing out, buddy.
After hearing Christopher Judge as Kratos, I want to watch everything with Christopher Judge. He's amazing.
He's amazing.
Because not only for one, it's one of those things, you hear the videos of him voicing Kratos, and his voice is like deep and powerful and booming without seeming to try. It's just like, man, that'd be so cool to be able to like make your voice do that. Then I realized that's just the dude's normal voice.
He's literally built the way that he should sound.
Because he is massive. He's a massive human being.
He's a big guy.
Oh my God, but he's awesome. So Christopher Judge took over as Kratos. Sonny Suljic is Atreus. Jeremy Davies is a character from the game, and then Freya. And then what?
Nice.
I see what you're saying. And then Danielle Bisutti plays another one of the major parts, who we'll get to in a little bit. But that's pretty much the main cast.
You gonna bleep yourself out there?
Did I say something? I mean, that's not a big one.
You should bleep it out for fun, for funsies.
I should do that. But no, so I mean, her character isn't as big of a thing. But Jeremy Davies, I'll let his be a little bit more shrouded in mystery until we get to the spoiler section of this.
Right.
But anyway, so the whole main story of this is that the game opens up with Kratos, and this we're just using to set the stage. Again, not super heavy spoilers. This is you can get by reading the back of the box if it had a description on the back of the box. But anyway, so it's like Kratos is now in Scandinavia, in the Norse lands, having left ancient Greece. And when the game picks up, he is going through the funeral rites for his now recently deceased wife, Faye. And you see that he has a son, Atreus. And basically, before she died, Faye gave Kratos the mission that she wanted him to scatter her ashes on the highest peak in the realm.
A nice little final fuck you as you're quietly going out into the world.
No, not really. I mean,
it's going to give you some really hard homework. You're going to hate it, buddy.
I guess that's true. Yeah, you got to find this place. And she's not like super specific. You have an idea of where you're supposed to go, but like, is it really where you're supposed to go?
I mean, she didn't like send them to Bermuda.
Well, she can't just give the answers right off the bat. You know, there's got to be a little bit of mystery to like make you want to be invested in. Like, well, sure, I guess I'll carry around my pouch filled with my dead wife's ashes in it for this whole game.
That sounds pleasant.
But so at this, let's just start off then with. So that's the groundwork for the story. That's all that stuff. What were some of the big like mechanic things that really stood out to everybody? Like what was something that you were like, this is really cool? Like a pro for the game.
Yeah, I guess for me, just immediately the axe as a weapon, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah,
super
the Leviathan
fun,
axe was awesome.
Kind of thing where it was like you would use it to fight, but also I would just be walking around and just throwing it for no reason because it was fun to do.
Right. And the story behind that one is that it was Faye's axe.
Yep.
So she like passed it on to him after she died as well.
It boomerangs back to you, right?
Yeah, you can like throw it out and call it,
which is like throw it, and then you'd have to go get it.
That's what made it really cool. You throw it, it would come right back. So basically, you could just walk around and do nothing, or you could just throw your axe at everything at all times.
The boomerang when it comes back would do damage. So you can, you
can like
do
damage to
you. No, to enemies.
So funny.
But like, so you can throw it, hit a group of people, and then call it back, and then like change your angle of view, and it'll like bring it back in a different arc and hit some other stuff. It was that was probably one of the best new mechanics.
Yes.
Was figuring out how to best use the Leviathan axe's ranged combat. Yep. Which came in handy a lot with especially some of the later bigger bosses down on in the game. Because I mean, yeah, I love to get up and close and personal as much as the next guy, but I mean, come on, if you can throw that bad boy.
And it was good practice too. Like at certain points of the game, you need to be able to that ranged attack. You have to be really accurate with it. So it was good practice. It reminded me a lot of Horizon.
Oh yeah.
Where you had to get really good, and in general, again, because I'm not playing some of these harder games, the like ability to just with the joystick get a couple inches to the right, like that was kind of frustrating at times. But I found myself getting better as the game went on.
Right.
So the axe doesn't have like a lock-on feature. You can't lock onto enemies and then throw it, and it'll go right to them. It
kind of does. It kind of has like if you're aiming in the general direction and you pull into the range, it's going to kind of like snap to the closest enemy.
Yeah.
The game does have an option to do this like enemy lock on where you can click the right stick and it will like all your ranged attacks and all that stuff, or your camera will be locked onto one specific enemy. But honestly, I turned that feature off because I accidentally kept hitting it in like massive, like crazed battles and then getting smacked around by people. And I was like, no, why am I focused on this Draugr? I have somebody over here who needs to be dealt with. So what about you, Fox? What kind of like initial, like I know we've talked about the different like artistic viewpoints and all that stuff, but like what was another like big mechanic that like kind of stood out as being like?
I mean, one of the standby mechanics in all the God of War games are puzzles.
Yeah.
At the same time as being like a mash 'em up, a fighting action crazy just button mashing. That's the word I'm looking for. There's also extended parts where you're just solving puzzles to move on in the level. And they continued that on, except they did it in a way that didn't feel like you're just solving a puzzle to move on.
Yeah.
Except for some moments where it still made sense, most of the puzzles were just like, oh, this elevator that will take us up the side of the mountain is broken. We need to figure out how to fix it.
Right.
There's like an actual like story, even if, it's kind of, what if they just made it, not broken? That's fine. Whatever. It still had a reason for existing, as well as there were times when there were puzzles that were just like, why would this be here? It's because there was a particular god or a particular dwarf, some kind of character who this is their realm and this is what they did. And so you're doing something, there's a reason for every single puzzle to exist.
Yeah.
Which was great. Like I said, like it was just a great melding of things you've already seen in the series, but better and new and fresh and just, yeah, like I didn't hate when puzzles showed up like I used to.
Right. Yeah, because I remember, man, which one of the older God of Wars do you have to deal with Pandora's box? Is that 2?
3.
That's 3?
I know Pandora is a main character in 3.
Okay. Because I remember there was something where there's like this big, basically like whole puzzle level where it's like you're on these shifting cubes. And it's like, oh my God, that part was so annoying. And then I remember, like, especially with the environmental puzzles in the first God of War, I remember, were kind of more of like just like annoying obstacles to get through, where they felt weird. Like, whereas this floor here that has the complete thing is full of spikes, and you only have like 5 seconds to kick this crate across the floor.
Who's overseeing this?
Right. And it's just like, this is going to keep everybody out. Yeah, it's going to keep everybody out who built it. So,
for starters, the spike floors are really good for job creation. Somebody has to get in there and clean those. It's good for the economy. These are smart choices.
I guess.
And second of all, that's also the game developers saying, you gamers could really use some strengthening of your gray matter in your brain. We're going to just throw a couple of these in here for you, try to make sure you're keeping sharp.
Also, we're supposed to play a god, and if you're getting trouble with spikes on the ground, maybe we don't deserve to be
That's
a god.
true.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true.
I guess so.
So one of the things that definitely stood out, one quick thing that I think this game is becoming a bigger thing and a more common thing, but I think this game did it really well, is the no load screens.
Ah, that sounds so nice.
It was so beautiful.
I mean, it's only obviously when you die, there's a load screen and all that stuff. But the one thing about this one that I felt like was different is the no load screen legit started from the first like setup screens. I know I talked about this when I gave my first impressions of the game, but you're going through your setup, you're choosing your difficulty level, and it basically is just showing Kratos standing there next to a tree, like holding the axe. And he's just kind of like, he's just standing there. You're going through all the menus, selection, and all this other stuff. And then you hit the final one, you're like, start game. You hit that, the text like fades away, Kratos pulls back the axe and starts chopping the tree. And it's just, and that's how the game starts. Right. And if you never died, you would never see a black screen from or anything from the time you started to the time it ended.
That should be your goal for your next playthrough.
Oh my God.
Not only was it there were no load screens, there were no like camera cuts.
Yeah.
Like the camera just continually moved to create new like angles on even cutscenes. Like it felt like directing a movie, like they were directing a movie rather than just showing you a scene and then you get back into fighting and then here's a scene. Everything flowed into each other and you saw things happening in the background, and it was artistically, it was amazing. Was what it was. It definitely how they did it.
It definitely felt like a movie experience where you just be happening. You were the one controlling the main character, and you had to play this game to basically go through the story. So.
Dare we say it was a cinematic experience?
Oh God!
I say yes.
Sure. I'd say
yeah. To a certain extent,
rolling my eyes.
But I mean, that being said, obviously, like there are loading screens. It's just in such a clever way when you're walking around between things that like. I think
we can talk about those. The Mystic Gateways. Like that's not a big thing. It's just basically the game's fast travel mechanic.
Exactly. So if you want to travel between two different areas, you basically go up to a door, and as that door is opening, that's the loading screen. And it was such a natural experience. It didn't take long.
No, and as you're loading as it's loading the new area you're going to, you travel around on the world tree.
Yeah, and so you walk around a little bit, and it's a pretty generic experience, but it's quick. It takes 30 seconds.
You'll learn some lore, story updates, and stuff like that while you're walking out. And then
that's big part of it.
Right.
Yeah. Even there's never a moment where something is not happening.
Yeah.
Even while you're like on a boat going to another location, Atreus is like, "Hey, character, no spoilers. Tell me this story about this thing." And then the person's like, "Oh, okay, sure." And then there's just like, it's not visually interesting, but there's still something that's happening rather than you just rowing a boat for the next 5 minutes.
I think, if you see, loading screens in general are faster now, but if I get a loading screen that's telling me hints in battle, like that's not a really immersive experience. And also, after you've gone through a quarter of the game, you've already seen all the tips. You don't need them anymore.
Right.
They're just...
Absolutely.
So they're a real slap in the face.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's like, I know I just died. I know I need to use this to fight the dinosaurs.
I know I
You
can
don't
lower
have
the
to tell
difficulty
me.
level, okay? God. But, which I thought that was a nice, and that's a carryover from the older God of War games too. You could always lower your difficulty. Actually, the only one you can't, once you start the game, is God of War Ascension. You can't lower it on that one, which is why I got to the final level, which gets astronomically harder than the rest of the game, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
I'm done.
I literally spent like 6 hours trying to beat the last level.
Wow.
It sounds like me on any of the series of bosses that you can optionally fight in this new God of War.
Yeah. We'll get
You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. We'll get to those in a second.
Any single one of those.
But except the only one in this one, you can't change the difficulty is if you do Give Me God of War, which is the hardest difficulty, which, my God, I can't imagine what that's like. Because I played I played on hard. And it was difficult. And I tried to play like fully immersive at the very beginning where you could turn off all on-screen indicators. So it's literally nothing. Yeah. Like there's no compass, there's no damage indicator, nothing happening. I had to turn that off real quick.
Yep, that sounds awful.
I was dying.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
So the other like big thing I think that was really good and sets this game apart from its predecessors is also the amount of exploration you can do. There's a ton of different areas. The original, like obviously this game has a very linear path it wants you to follow, and you do seem to revisit old areas quite frequently, but the game has a very interesting mechanic in being able to expose new areas for you to discover. Yeah. This isn't very spoiler because it's seen in the trailers. You meet the World Serpent, and the World Serpent's in this big lake. Well, as the game progresses, the World Serpent will move, which causes the level of the lake to lower, and which reveals new areas for you to go explore. So it's a fun mechanic to like not have to make this like massively huge world map. For the creating it's a fun design choice, but you still have a smaller map with tons of things to do. So I felt like the amount of exploration you could do was a lot. I enjoyed the new RPG elements to the game as far as like crafting armor, upgrading armor. I didn't change. What did you guys do? Did you guys change armor that much? I think I switched sets 3 times.
I mean, I changed a decent amount, mostly because I was keeping it on the second hardest level, and I needed help. So I spent a decent amount of time improving my armor just because I was dying too much.
Yeah.
So that was my main motivation there. But like of the world exploration, it never felt like a chore when I needed to go and do the thing to be able to craft better armor or anything like that. It just felt like part of the game.
Yeah. What about you, Fox?
Yeah, I change my armor sometimes, except toward there's one part of the map that you can go to at a certain point where if you don't change your armor to a certain set, it's basically impossible to finish. That was definitely true. And then also for certain bosses, for the actual story though, I basically found whatever gave me the most strength and then just improve that as much as I can. Yeah, so it never felt like I needed to, but then at certain points it felt like I actually did need to because they wanted you to do it, but not to have to do it. And I thought that was a good balance.
And then obviously there were like skills you could unlock, which is a similar thing. Like this one you gained XP. The other one you would gain these like red orbs in the older games that you would then use to upgrade your different weapons or abilities and all this stuff. And this one just had your typical, you gain experience, you spend that experience to unlock skills, which fairly standard RPG fare, but fun, a little bit more in depth than what is seen in previous games. So that's a lot about what we liked. We're getting close to when we're going to need to jump into spoiler territory to really go much more here. What was something you didn't like? If you even had something at all you didn't like about the game? Like something that didn't rub you quite the right way or something like that?
I had one thing that I could think of right now because I played the game. I played a lot of the game. The one thing that I could tell you that I wish they had done differently, not necessarily that I thought was bad, was the fast travel system. Especially when you go to some of the optional dungeons or just like the side areas. Yeah. And if you're doing the collectible things, like if you're trying to find lore stones or trying to find, if one of those things is at the end of a dungeon, then you have to run all the way down through that area. And to be able to fast travel, you have to go to certain waystones, which is very common, but it felt like there was a lot of running that was just unnecessary. Yeah. I think they could have given you what if after you had finished the story, now you can fast travel from wherever to these certain points. Like, that was the one complaint I think I had, major complaint, I guess.
Yeah, I think for me, the only one that I really had was sometimes like I said, the lock-on thing kind of got annoying, but again, you can turn that off. So I was like, problem solved. Yep. Not a big deal anymore. So I wouldn't really count that. The navigating sometimes got difficult, like especially as you're exploring the Lake of the Nine.
That's true. That's true.
The compass, you could track these favors or like side quest things that you would want to do, but it wouldn't be like a very definitive go this way. It was just like you had to, especially for some of some specific favors, you had to find these like very, very specific parts of the Lake of the Nine to even go to it. I fast traveled all over the place trying to get to one and just couldn't find it. Then to find out it's like it's just this crevice in the lake that you just happen to sail into, and that's the right way to go. And I was like,
well,
couldn't have given me like a slight directional. Like, you have the compass, but even with that, it's still not like it's not precise enough. I don't know. I had issue with it.
For Jerrett specifically, maybe not you, presumably normal people, but we know that Jerrett, from his experience with Dark Souls, is not the best at directions.
Yes. So, I mean, I'm also going to be salty about it if it's not a perfectly laid out path for me to follow. But no, I mean,
he really needs like active visual guide points.
That was just the one thing that really stuck out. There is a couple other things that we'll talk about when it gets more spoilery, because there's some story-based things. Another thing that kind of was like, I wish that could have been better. And you and I, Michael, had actually talked about that a little bit before.
Oh, okay.
But so we'll touch on that in the spoilers section. But Michael, what about you?
Yeah, without going into spoilers, the only thing that I can think of, I guess, so there's one particular mini boss, I guess you could call it, that's pretty repetitive. The ogre troll, whatever it may be.
We talked about those. That's not a spoiler. We had
that's
a little figurine on here.
An enemy is like, unless it's like a boss, I'm not going to call those like spoilers.
Yeah, and it was really cool the first time. It was pretty fun the second time, the third, the fourth, the fifth. By the end of it, I was just like,
you wind up finding like 10 trolls, I think, 10 to 12 trolls, I think.
They changed their mechanic a little bit, but at the end of the day, I felt like I just had to do the same thing over again.
Yeah.
And particularly at the end when you're doing it, it's kind of like, I don't want to fight this guy again. Like, I don't.
But by that point too, they're also easy.
Yeah.
Like, you can take them down pretty quick.
Yes. Yeah, there were definitely moments where it was like, I remember the first couple were way harder than the next two, which is kind of cool. But also at the same time too, it's like very clear that like they didn't change the mechanic enough, because now it's super easy.
They didn't scale.
Yeah.
The very first troll, but that's also when I was trying to play without indicators. Oh my God. Killed me so many damn times.
Yeah.
And because too, you had to like learn the range of their attack a lot. Like when they would do the thing where they take their stone and like thrust it out straight at you, you really should like always roll to the side to get out of the way. But I was rolling backwards and it would still get me. And it was just like, that take a lot of learning, which I didn't really have a problem with. It's just learning the mechanics.
They, they had different names. They looked a little bit different in terms of, I think they were like different colors.
Different elements.
Yeah.
Like some were poison, some were fire, some were ice.
But all generally the same.
Yeah.
There's one specifically where one is like the bridge troll. And I was really excited to fight. And it's the same troll that I've been fighting over and over.
They tricked you.
Yeah, that one had a nice little twist, but different than the others.
I was still expecting it to be something different.
I think it would have been really funny if they would have given all of the trolls just extremely generic, like, Swedish names.
Yeah.
Like that one, Sven.
They give them names, but like I wish there would have been maybe a little bit more, because they go to the trouble of naming them. I wish there would have been a little bit of lore behind them.
Yeah, it was
like this one is like gatekeeper of this realm for like 300 years or something. Like, you know what I mean? Or something like that.
They had different names, but other than like the paragraph in your little journal, there was no reason for them to have a story. And I guess that was the only other thing that I found that was kind of odd. The mechanic of basically going into your journal to read about someone. Like, I did that for a little bit.
I quit. I usually don't read that stuff.
But after the first, 10, 20 of it, I just stopped reading it. It just seemed like a weird mechanic.
Yeah, I get that.
A little bit.
So I would say, I'm trying to think if there's anything else before we jump into the spoiler stuff here.
I have one small little thing.
Okay.
There was a Game Informer did they do their rapid fire question interviews, and they're great. And they asked Corey Barlog, not Balrog.
Let's call him the Balrog.
They asked him, what's the annoying thing that Atreus is gonna yell all the time? And he's like, oh, nothing. And it turns out it's pretty much everything in
every
combat.
Time you die, Atreus, like, Father, don't leave me alone here. Which I was like, oh, that one's heartbreaking. Don't leave me alone here when you die.
The first time.
Yeah, I know it hurt, man. Stop it. Shut up.
Yeah, a little bit more variety in Atreus' lines during combat would have been nice. I'll agree to that.
So
I would agree to that as well.
We talked about what we liked, what we didn't like. Was there anything really weird for you guys? And I'm asking because I have an answer to this question.
Ooh.
I mean, it's weird, the juxtaposition of seeing a Greek god in the Norse lands, but I mean, I love that because then, the one thing about that I felt like the God of War games, other than just being this over-the-top, gory, violent, the original ones, were you still learned about like the Greek gods and the Greek pantheon, kind of to an extent. Yeah. And so it was fun to have that with this one. And to kind of, you still learn more about the gods. You learn more, which is very interesting when you're hearing them talk about like Odin and Thor as bad guys, which now in our current, current pop culture, Odin and Thor are awesome. Right. But like here we're talking about them and they're like scum of the earth and just terrible, terrible deities. And you're just like, this is different. But that would really be the only thing for me, I guess. But not a bad weird.
Yeah. The only thing that was a little off for me, going back to your reference to pop culture, the humor. It wasn't bad per se. It just seemed a little forced. This is a very like dire world. Crazy things are going on, and randomly characters would like crack jokes, and it just seemed a little.
Give me
an
example of the jokes.
We can talk about
right now.
The dwarves, the Holger brothers.
So
Brock
basically,
and
there are
Sindri.
2 dwarves that give you all of your, help you with armor and crafting and things like that.
They're the shops.
Typical dwarven jobs.
Yeah, but they really don't fit anything else in like the tone of the story. They're very out of place.
They're funny though. I liked them.
I liked them. I feel like they brought some humanity along with Atreus.
Yeah.
It's a pretty empty game as far as like people go.
That's true.
Which is similar. Which again is a normal God of War thing. In the original God of War games, there are obviously the Greek citizens, the the mortals and all that stuff. But they're pretty much just fodder for everybody else to get killed. But you can already tell in this world some event, and they briefly talk about it. Some event already took place that has caused men to flee, and all that's left are the undead draugrs and all the ogres, trolls, all these other things.
I think the event was the draugrs and the trolls. That sounds like
they
pretty
talked
good
about
deterrent.
like some other thing, but they didn't really go into it. So maybe they'll get into it in the sequels.
Yeah, but it was like
there's definitely more room to learn about what's going on in this world.
Right.
So I can agree with you. It definitely inserted a little bit of humanity, but one of the dwarves was like disgusted by all things in the world, which in the world that he lived in.
I mean, I thought that was funny.
I did too.
I thought it was funny too. It just seemed a little
like they'd hand him some like a body part or something like they'd cut off of an enemy to like give him to use it to craft, and he'd be like. Or be like trying to like hold it back, but then he'd like craft something cool, and then his brother Brock is just like this hardened asshole, and you're just like.
Honestly, the only other thing I thought between the 2 dwarves, they were brothers, correct?
Yeah.
They really didn't look that much alike, so I'm not sure that they were really brothers.
Dwarf Town.
Brock's all blue, and Sindri
they don't really look that similar.
Yeah, it's interesting. So did you answer this one, Fox? I can't remember if you answered this question about something weird.
I mean, it felt great to me. I guess I didn't really feel like it was weird seeing Kratos in a new land. It kind of just revealed more about the universe, in these series of games. Oh, okay. I see how it works now. This is just a world where there are gods of various lands.
Yeah.
He moved to a different one. Like, I kind of like it. I mean, nothing really super weird stood out to me.
Nice.
Just something new to learn.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered some of the more basic things of the game and all this other stuff. So let's move on then. We are going to move into our spoiler-heavy territory. This is where we're going to talk about story beats, all the fun stuff. We're going to be giving away basically anything we want to. So if you don't want the rest of the game spoiled, so at this point, before we leave you, let's rate the game for the non-spoiler part. Where does this rank? We know, however you want to rank this, like 8 out of 10, 10 out of 10, whatever you want to do.
Thumbs up,
Fox,
thumb quarter,
where does this
thumb
fall for
medium.
you?
Purchase this game and play it.
Nice.
Buy it from a major retailer. I'm a big fan of voting with your money when it comes to video games. You should spend money on this game.
Absolutely.
Because it is doing what video games, in my opinion, should be doing, and we should reward them for that. So buy it and play it immediately.
Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, very similar from me. I spent a lot of time playing this game. You know, I would come home from work and I'd play it till much later than I intended to, and I'd go to work and I'd be thinking about, hey, I'm really excited to go play this game. It was probably 2.5 weeks where it was mostly what I cared about.
Yeah.
That's the mark of a good game.
Absolutely.
But yeah, same thing. I finished it, and I really wanted to play the next one.
Yeah.
And so you talked about what God of War 3 was 2010.
Yeah.
I really hope the next game's not 2026.
Oh God, I hope not. That'd be terrible.
No, I finished it, and I immediately wanted to play the next one.
Yes. I'm in the exact same boat. As term like we normally try to do like a percentage of love. I definitely put this one like 99, 100. Like it was like
really that high.
There was really like legitimately, I can think of nothing other than the small like annoyances that we talked about. Nothing that was like game breakingly bad where I'm like, this does not deserve to be a perfect game. You know, it's fantastic.
Bold words, sir.
So
Bold
with that,
words.
We'll now jump into the spoiler territory for all of you who want those nice, juicy details of this. Okay, so you've been warned. Stop now. Don't complain to us if you hear something you don't want to hear after this point. All right. Let's talk about the stranger. Okay. Let's talk about
Jeremy Davies.
Jeremy Davies, that's his character, the stranger. You meet the stranger very early on in the game because as you're about to basically start your quest to go to the mountaintop, he knocks on your door and he's asking about Faye, right? Or he's asking about Faye, and then he's like,
essentially,
but he's also like very curious about who you are because he doesn't know.
He's curious about who you are and who's there with you.
Right.
Seems to know things about you that you've tried to keep hidden.
Yeah. And so you basically devolves into a fight, as most interactions that Kratos does.
As Kratos does.
Yeah, as Kratos does. And holy shit, that fight was one of the greatest boss fights ever.
Yeah, I forget the number of times you thought you won, but you didn't. But what was it, 7, 8
Well, because
times?
the thing about Baldur is he's been cursed with, he can't feel. And he can't be... Basically, he can't be killed. He's just impervious to any physical pain.
Yeah.
So you can wail on him, you can beat him, you can cut him, you can stab him, you can do whatever you want, and it's not gonna. It may slow him, but it's not gonna. Yeah, it's not gonna take him out. But that battle was so artful in how you just had to learn how to counter his punches, counter his attacks. You know, deal your own damage. And I remember it just. Several people like online would like commented about it, and they were just like, it felt like a superhero fight, and it really like I can't think of a better way to really describe it. I
think a real beautiful part about it was, so before this you had gone out and went hunting, right?
Right.
Was that something that had happened already?
You fought the troll already. The first troll.
Yeah, and you fought the troll and you beat the troll, and you know this was not the first thing that happened, and you. From the start, no, it's a little different than old God of Wars. Kratos has a beard, first off.
Yep.
And also he's got a son, and he's not constant rage monster anymore.
Right.
And then the stranger shows up and you fight him, and I feel like they were trying to get you to be like, oh yeah, this is what Kratos is like. Oh yeah, I'm just going to rage out and murder this guy. No problem. Ha, I killed him. Oh wait. I didn't kill him. Like, the things that Kratos has relied on in the past to just deal with his problems, mainly his rage and strength, are not, like, they're doing nothing.
Yeah, they're not going to work for him.
So they're trying, again, to tell you, hey, this is different. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to try to do those things, both as mechanically and as a character, and they're not gonna get you where you want to go. So you got to figure something else out.
Yeah.
I thought it was beautiful.
I also really liked, like, in terms of, he was an interesting looking character. He had some markings, but slight frame. Looked like
he wasn't like huge dude.
He looked like a normal guy. And again, my experience from God of War was watching YouTube videos and seeing other little clips. And you're fighting giant monsters and gods and titans and things like that. This was a normal dude, way smaller than you, and it was just like a very interesting way to bring into the fact of like, these are two gods fighting each other, but gods aren't all these monstrous beings that live in mountains. It's just a normal person walking around who happens to be a god. I thought it was great.
Yeah. And so, what did you guys think? Michael, you and I talked about this a little bit last night, but like, what did you think about the final? Because obviously, fighting Baldur and finally defeating Baldur is like the end fight of this game. What did you guys? How did you feel about the difficulty of it? Because here's the thing: I did not die near as much fighting Baldur as I did any of the other opponents I had to fight in this game. which normally I feel like would be a bad thing. But honestly, I feel like because of how the mechanics worked and how the countering and, the blocking and countering system felt, it made you feel toe to toe and like on an equal playing field and not overpowered, because if that makes sense at all, it felt even. It was like, I didn't feel like the crushing blow of, oh my God, I got killed for the 50th time. I just am ready for this fight to be over. It held it maintained the suspense and in the I'm losing the word. The intensity of the fight. It never, dropped. You never felt like all this stuff. Because, I think the first fight with Baldur, I maybe died once. The second fight with Baldur, I think I died like twice. And the final fight with Baldur, I died, I think only once again. But I didn't mind it because I was just like, it's such an engaging battle. And especially in the final one with, the Freya being thrown in the fray. But it adds an extra element to it, but it felt like gods fighting.
Yeah, I thought about this a little bit. The main actual story bosses I felt were way easier than a lot of the side quest bosses, or even just some of the things that you encountered when walking around the lake.
Yeah. When you run into the Wervins.
Yeah.
Like the Realm Terrors and stuff like that. The Realm Terror bosses or the Travelers.
The Travelers.
Oh my God.
The Travelers and the Realm Terrors were way harder than any of the main bosses. And the Valkyries, of course, too.
Jesus. So the Valkyries is who we were referring to earlier.
Are the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
The Valkyries, there are 9 of them. They are so hard. I still have to go back and find all of them. I beat 4.
I'm not
5?
ashamed to admit. So I played it on the second hardest difficulty level. By the first Valkyrie, I had to move down to the normal difficulty.
There's no shame in normal.
And once I encountered the rest, I just went to story because I just did not want to mess with it.
No shame in that.
They are hard.
Even on story, I died a couple times. No joke. Yeah.
Well, because they're all the Valkyries are, they have similar attacks and similar things, but the Valkyries are the most diverse enemies you'll fight.
And also,
every single one has different attacks. Every single one has different things they'll pull out of their back pocket to attack you with. And you're also just like, what do I do against that?
At max, I think 3 hits and you're dead. Most of the time 2, sometimes 1.
Yeah.
So you mess up once, you're dead.
Yeah. The Valkyries were ridiculously hard.
I beat all of them. I tracked them down, took down all of them. Most of them took me probably 40 to 50 deaths. They were just like, I was hate playing the game. I'm going to beat this just because I need to right now. Not because, I didn't even feel like satisfaction after killing him. I was like, finally, it's over.
Seriously, it's crazy.
Great, I thought, because it's what forced me to look at other parts of the mechanics, like armor-wise, changing up my strategy, getting, changing up Atreus's abilities. How can I make this fight easier? That was when I really was forced to play the game with a little bit more strategy rather than just brute strength.
Right. You actually had to learn the combos and different stuff like that.
The main story bosses.
Yeah. The Valkyries and all that stuff was ridiculously hard. The one I hated the most of the ones I played so far is the one who would spawn Draugrs. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Because your instinct is to, I'm going to kill the Draugrs to then make it where I'm only going to have to fight this Valkyrie. But if you kill her Draugrs, she just spawns more Draugrs.
Yep. Yeah, so you have to, bro. You gotta think ahead. So you gotta only aim at her and just run around the
That's
Draugr.
The one where I turned off the lock, the auto lock, because it kept locking on a Draugr as I'm trying to smack her out of the air with a throw from the axe, because she's about to do her ultimate attack.
Yeah,
and I can't hit her, and then I die, and then I have to.
For me, we were talking about, what's the maze realm? Is that Niflheim?
Niflheim. Yeah.
For me, that was the worst Valkyrie, because I actually beat her twice, but did not make it out of the maze in time. Ooh. And then I just gave up. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Sucks.
I did really like the Trials of Muspelheim and Niflheim. I thought that was a fun addition to the game. Although
those were amazing.
Yeah, I beat the first round of challenges on Muspelheim, which that is the only part of the game where I lowered the difficulty, because I got to the one trial where it's kill 100 enemies.
Yeah.
I kept getting to 70. Left and dying. And I was like, and I probably played that 20, 30 times. And I was just like, I can't keep just doing this one part. It's not even the main part of the game. But you get up to the top, you kill the Valkyrie up there, then it's like, cool, a whole nother round of challenges set to go at the bottom. And if you're going for the trophy, you can't get the trophy until you go back up the challenges on the mountain again. And I was just like, oh my God, this sucks. So, but yeah, those were incredibly difficult. Dragon battles I thought were really awesome. Like the one you take out in the main story. I still need to track down the third dragon.
Yeah, we were talking about this. I never found the third, but I liked the first two.
Yeah, the first one, those were really cool. Let's see what other. Okay, so let's talk about the other big thing that I was like my con, like the one thing I didn't like, which was Atreus' character development.
Did he turn out evil?
No. Well, kind of.
That would have been. Oh, really?
Kind of.
Okay.
Because at the very beginning, he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know that like he doesn't know that Kratos is a god. So therefore, he doesn't know that he's half a god.
Does he never find out?
No, he does.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, wow, they ended that way.
No,
he still
he
doesn't
does,
know.
and we'll get to that twist in a second. But what I didn't like is that he's like a kid. You know, he's trying to like. You know,
he's like
find some kind of support.
11, right?
Yeah, find support from Kratos, and Kratos is being standoffish because he's like, I don't want to get close to you because I've already lost my first wife back in Greece and daughter back in Greece, and now I've lost Faye, and you know, now you're just with me, and I don't know what to do with you, kind of thing.
Kratos needs to really work on his emotional fortitude.
Well, he does, which is a big part of this game, and a big
kind of
plus
what this
for
game
this
is
game.
about.
Yeah, a lot of what this game is about is they're building in trust and relationship with each other. But it gets to the point where Atreus does finally figure out that he is a god, and it's just a light switch flip that he goes from being like a mildly annoying like 10 to 12-year-old kid to being straight up just a dick.
Yeah, he becomes a huge brat, like,
you know,
overnight.
just instantly. He's immediately just like, oh, I'm a god. I don't have to listen to these like petty people's problems. Like Sindri starts to tell him something, he like shuts Sindri down and like basically is like, I'm sick and tired of hearing about your stupid little people problems. Which also he calls him a little person. He's a dwarf. Like, oh god, you know,
that's insensitive. They prefer dwarf.
Exactly. And so like he's already insulting him. He starts like. Shit talking on his mother because he's like, oh, she wasn't a god. And Kratos is like, you better stop that shit right now, or I will put a whooping on you, boy. Which we haven't even talked about the great plus of how many times Kratos just calls Atreus boy.
Yeah,
but boy.
Yeah, it went from annoying to funny to comical to sad. I went through the whole range of emotions during it because he says it 3,000 times.
Oh yeah, it's great. Which we were actually just watching in a video before this. Watch Mojo, they were putting on out that apparently that's because Atreus wasn't actually named until very late in the development stage. So they just called him Boy in the writing because that's easy. You can just call him Boy and then just throw in his name later.
That makes sense.
But anyway, so that just felt very jarring to me because how quick. And then it was quickly resolved and he was like leveled out later on in the story near the end of the game. But like he has these, I don't know, it just was so quick for me. Yeah, like the switch from just being like, I'm just a normal boy to I'm a god.
On one hand, I get it because he's 10, 11.
Right, doesn't know how to handle it.
And so I guess I get that. But me as like part of this story, I was like, okay, I'm very annoyed by this kid right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're like from the kid's perspective, Kratos is a really shitty dad.
Oh yeah,
he's
absolutely.
not like. Yeah. Of course, he would turn out like that because he has a shitty father.
I think it totally makes sense. I was just like, okay,
screw
this kid.
If they made the kid like a really good person, like really on it, I feel like that wouldn't match the type of parenting that he's gone through.
Very true, very true. But also, we don't know what his mother was like.
We can assume bad.
We can assume. No, I would think she's good. No, Faye was good.
Basically, we never meet her, and it's basically like she kind of doesn't want Atreus to be around Kratos.
Yeah,
Kratos
for a good
is
reason.
kind of meeting him really as they go through this game. And I just got this idea that she was a kind and loving mom.
Yeah,
and that she was like that. She was very different from Kratos.
So let's then talk. Let's jump into that then, because you know you realize you're on this journey, but also you know Kratos and Atreus, they're like, why are we doing this? They're just doing it because it was her final wish. But so through the course of the events, you know, you unlock all these different realms that you can go to: Muspelheim, Nilfheim, Helheim, Jotun. Jotunheim is the one you're trying to get to, which because you learn from one of the greatest side characters in this game, Mimir. Mimir is this guy who you get to the summit of the mountain where you think is the top. This is where you got to be and this is where you're going to be done. But you find Mimir. He's been basically made part of a tree by Odin. And he's just stuck there and tortured by Odin, Thor's sons, Balder, everybody, all the time. He used to be like he used to be just like basically an aide or to Odin, basically. Smartest man alive, he claims.
A counselor, a sage.
Yeah. And so you would get up there and he's basically like, oh no, this isn't the highest peak in the realm. You got to go to Jotunheim, the land of the giants. Because that's where the highest peak of the realm is.
What a helpful tree man.
Like, what the hell?
But also, he's like, and you can't get there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
You'll need my help to try to figure it out. Well, but he's stuck in a tree. So you have to cut his head off and kill him. And then you take him back to Freya, who is this witch in the jungle that you meet, who he says like a witch should be able to reanimate me, hopefully, And so you go on you take him back to Freya. She is able to reanimate him. And then through that discussion, you figure out that Freya is a god and was once married to Odin. And then later on in the game, you figure out that she is the mother of Balder. So it's this whole tangled thing, but she's actually pretty good. You like her a lot. I like Freya.
I understood her motivation. She was a pretty well-rounded character.
Yep.
And then, but anyway, so you wind up through the course of the game figuring out how to get to Jotunheim. And you get to Jotunheim at the very end of the game. You climb up the steel. You realize through these tapestries that somehow Faye knew what was going to happen. She knew the future outcomes. She knew all this different stuff. And you find that from these writings in Jotunheim and these murals on the wall. And through this, you then learn that Faye was a giant.
Which is how she had the insight to know what was going to happen.
Exactly. So because the giants have been oppressed and basically wiped out by Odin. And they escaped to Jotunheim and shut off all gateways to it to escape Odin. And so that, as part of it is you're potentially opening this land back up to Odin's wrath, essentially. But so then, Atreus is sitting there and he's just like, so wait, that means I'm a god and a giant? And it's like, yeah, pretty much.
Oh, wait a minute.
What, and so then when he says that, wheels in my head started turning. I was like, uh-oh. Yep. Is this going to be? And then I can't remember the exact line, what brings it up. And he's just like, what's it? He asks Kratos, what's this here? And Kratos is like, oh, that's the name your mother wanted to call you. But I liked Atreus better because, it's Greek. And he's like, oh, what is it? Loki. So Atreus is Loki. And I was like, what?
But that was one of those where I didn't really think about it, but once it's introduced, it totally makes sense.
Totally makes sense.
Very mischievous.
Yeah, it totally backs up all of Atreus' character.
In terms of his powers and things like that, totally makes sense.
He can is a master of languages.
Having that dark streak in him.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely got it all. So I was like, holy shit. This opens a whole new level to this that I'm sure will get explored more in the later games. But that was the big end all be all twist of this game. So any other so what were your big moments? What for you, for all of you? I'm excited to hear yours, Michael, because having not played other God of War games, and Fox, I'm interested to hear what yours is as well.
So my understanding of God of War is he was essentially a Greek god, and I know he's the son of Zeus. Made into a Spartan, made into a god through killing of Ares and all this kind of stuff. And I knew he had 2 blades tied to his arms and did crazy stuff. And so I get this game, and he's a giant dude with an axe, and I'm thinking, okay, that's cool, it's different. But
Lumberjack Kratos.
Yeah, but that's just not what I experienced. So yes, when you go and actually get the Blades of Chaos, get to use them.
Beautiful.
I don't think it was as important of a moment for me as someone who hadn't played the earlier games, but I was like, this is very cool. And it also, I love that, you get to pick between those 2 weapons the rest of the game. It totally changed how you played.
So that was the top moment of the game for me, was getting the Blades of Chaos. Because you're talking to Freya, because another earlier part with Atreus is he gets sick, and they talk about him having this illness. And it's later learned that it's basically the god in him fighting with the mortal in him because he doesn't understand what he is.
Yeah.
And so that causes him to get sick. And so eventually at this one point in the game, he basically is about to die, in full on coma, because it just takes over and everything. And so you have to go to Helheim to get the gatekeeper troll's heart, bridgekeeper troll's heart, and bring it back. And when you do, but before you go to Helheim, Freya's like, well, but it's basically a land of ice your axe is going to do, which is an ice-based weapon. She's like, it's not going to do any good for you
it's
down
not
there.
going to do anything.
She was like, do you have anything else that you could use? And he looks down in the cinematic. He looks down at his arms, and I was sitting there on the couch going like, oh my God.
Yep.
You know, just like, is this what's going to happen? And he's like, I have to go home. And he goes like back to his home, like pulls up the floorboards and pulls out the Blades of Chaos. And I freaked out.
It was really cool.
It was because like I had no idea you were going to get to play with them. They had not hinted at it. You had nothing about it. And so he pulls those bad boys out and then goes to town on a bunch of Draugrs and Reavers. And it was awesome.
Yeah,
which I thought
what I loved about the moment was not only was it mechanically really fun and also really cool that halfway, I don't know about halfway, but a ways into the game, here's a whole new set of mechanics for you to learn.
Which also felt very similar to the older games too and how they played still.
Yeah. Not only was it like cool that they gave you that, but it just, like everything, most things in the game and like a good story does, nothing is just there for fun, I guess. There's also, going back to get this, just feels like Kratos is trying to leave behind his past. He wants to just live in solitude and just live, but now he is forced to go back and get these weapons that he used to murder his own family on accident, but he still did it. And now he has to use them again, and he's like struggling, like,
but this time to save his family.
Now he needs them to save his family, and it's just this like inner turmoil that you can see, and it's so good on a mechanical and story-based level. It's like it never felt shoehorned in there. I never felt like, oh, they just want us to do this because whatever. Like, no, this makes sense.
Yeah. So I literally think that was probably the top moment of the game for me. Obviously, the stuff with Atreus at the end was awesome too, and all that. But I think for a story beat, like that was by far the best moment of the game for me.
I also love the final fight with Baldur, the third one, where Freya was a very, like, at the same time as liking her, I didn't like her, which is a good villainous type thing. Like, when you you understand she's willing to die for her son, but you're also saying, well, her son's a murderous maniac, like, and just, I'm excited to see, like, maybe what she does more than I am with, like, Atreus a little bit in the next game, just to, like, does she go running to Odin? Like, I found...
You're going to need me.
I found Loki, like, that kind of thing. Like, I really love that moment, but also just visually when she reanimates the giant that's been laying on the ground, the what's his name, the blacksmith or whatever with he's been laying there the whole game, and she reanimates him, and he starts like throwing crap at you in the middle of a fight and slant, like it's just such a cool like visual thing.
Which was also a nice throwback to like fighting Titans in the older God of War games too. So I felt like it fit really well. So a little background on that for you, Mogan. You know, Baldur is Freya's son, but you get to the final fight and you're like trying to kill him, and she's trying to protect him. But then it gets to this point basically because she's the one who cursed him with the inability to feel.
Well, and so, why does Baldur want to kill you in the first place?
Because you are a challenge, basically. Like he understands that he knows that Faye is a giant, or was a giant, so he knows that Loki has. Or Atreus has giant in him, and and the giant's like the number one threat to Odin and his kin, basically. And so because of that, he needs to stop you from finding out all these different things, and then also because of that, you're getting in his way, and he's just like, oh, I got to kill you now because you're in my way. And so. So anyway, so she's basically telling Kratos not to kill Baldur because she thinks she can save Baldur. But then basically Baldur, even though she removes the curse from him and all this stuff and like is trying to like make amends, he still like tries to choke her out and kill her.
Yeah.
And Kratos is like, nope, I'm done, and walks up and just snaps Baldur's neck. And then Freya is just like, I'm gonna murder you.
Yeah,
now.
I thought
like
that was
I'm going to wish
moment.
like a million worse outcomes that I can put it on you.
From Kratos' perspective, he basically saved her, and that's what's probably going to turn her into a supervillain. Like, I just think that's great.
Yeah. No, it was another just great story moment.
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously too, another great moment was Atreus finding out that he is a god. And then especially when they have to go back to Helheim and like he sees the vision of Kratos killing Zeus, because there's all these things.
Yeah.
He like Atreus earlier in the game has killed Modi, one of Thor's sons. And, Kratos is like, why'd you do that? You don't understand. Like, you can't just kill a god and think that everything's going to be all hunky-dory after, you just opened a can of worms, buddy.
Yep.
And Kratos is like, how do you know? Like, blah, blah, because he doesn't know at this point.
Again, that's shitty parenting.
I know.
He could have
Kratos
discussed
should have said all of this
a long time ago.
No, absolutely.
That's a him problem.
It very much is. And so, it was just all these different things, but him seeing Kratos, he killed Zeus, he killed his own father kind of thing. And then especially when
I should kill my own father. I think that's probably what's going to happen.
It's hinted at because they're on the mural in Jotunheim shows Atreus cradling a dead Kratos. But you don't know if that's because Atreus killed him, he just died, or what the circumstances are. But Kratos sees that mural, Atreus doesn't. So he's kind of like, all right.
Alrighty then.
But, so those are all great moments too. I'm trying to think of just some other, I don't know, any other big stuff. Again, don't want to harp on this too long. We want to leave some stuff for people to experience for themselves if they're still at this point. But
I think actually going to Helheim was probably one of my favorite parts. The one thing specifically that I'm looking forward to going back, hopefully in the next game, is I don't remember who he is, but when you go to Helheim, there's the giant raven.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and it was super cool.
And I was like, ooh, do I get to fight that thing? And I didn't, so I was disappointed. But I'm hoping that you can fight him in the next game.
I'm assuming, maybe. Because there are all the, the eyes of Odin, the ravens flying around that you can kill. So maybe, Odin Odin's the god of this realm. I'm sure he has some control over that huge buzzard. Yeah. So, that would be a pretty epic boss battle. In general,
Helheim both times, I thought was great. I thought that was super fun.
Yeah.
Trying to think
there was also a really good moment. Mimir, you keep the severed head on your body at all times, mechanically to give another voice to just the story, so it's not you and Atreus constantly.
Which is great.
But also,
Mimir's awesome.
He's kind of this wise sage and can give advice and kind of talk to Kratos, even though Kratos never wants to hear it. But there's a moment where basically, I think it's after Atreus learns he's a god. And he says, Kratos, you hate gods. You've told your kid your whole life that you hate the gods, and the gods are always evil. And now your son has learned he's a god. And now your son thinks you hate him. Just this kind of and he knows you hate yourself. And all of these things that came from just those fun beat 'em up games are now coming back to haunt you. It gives more weight to those, I guess, even though it was unintentional at the time. It gives you those story character development moments that we never thought would even happen.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to see those.
Absolutely.
I would like to voice a complaint. So I understand that his skull or head is like a flashlight, right?
Yeah.
But man, does
Mimir's?
Yeah.
No. I mean, he doesn't use his head. He's got
eyes.
it's like a prism thing, but not necessarily. It's not used as a light. There is in God of War 3. Kratos does use the head of Helios as a headlight.
So funny. But regardless, my complaint stands. I think it would have been absolutely hysterical if you'd have had to just dig up the whole tree, put it in a cart, and just kind of drag it with you the whole game.
Put him down to do fights and stuff.
I feel like that would have been puzzle things. Okay, how are we going to get Mimir and his tree across?
What can I do? What can I do?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. No.
That would have been super funny.
That would have been a great moment as well. No, Mimir was probably my favorite side character. I really liked Brock and Sindri's. I liked Brock's whenever you'd come up to you'd run across him and stuff. And you'd come up to his shop and he's like, "What's got you all bumfuzzled about?" Something like that. Just his weird.
Well, that's not how you greet your colleagues and friends.
Next time you come in to record, I'm gonna be like, "What's got you so bumfuzzled?"
I would slap you right in the face, sir.
All that stuff. But I really love them. I also love the story thing they used to explain how they can have shops literally everywhere.
Yes, that was good.
It's basically dwarves have this ability to realm travel. Because they're these master crafters and master builders, they built these passageways through all the different realms that are outside of what the normal gods or normal gods would use to travel. So because they're kind of at one point Atreus is just
how do you keep popping up?
What are you doing here? And he's like, "Oh, that's no big deal. It's just a dwarven secret. Don't worry about
it. I'm here now. So you want some armor?"
I thought that was a fun nod to the player. We know this is kind of crazy that these same two characters keep popping up, but here's a good reason for why. I really enjoyed.
I
that
wish
as
they
well.
would have, because of the name Brock, it just reminds me of Pokemon. I wish that they would have been like two different guys in every location, but they would have looked exactly the same and they all would have had the same name. And it's like, no, we're different Brocks. That's that other Brock in the other land.
That's
We're
Brock A.
different
I'm
guys.
Brock B. Yeah. That would have been good. I can't really think of anything else. Like any other like closing things or other like final story beats or moments that you were just like really stood out?
Again, I was talking about the Raven, but I liked how it opened up like, what's the next game going to be? Like,
Yes.
I thought that was really cool. And
Did everyone see the secret ending?
yes.
Oh, with Thor?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
And then
that
somebody
was
else
really fun.
another friend of mine like said, "Hey, did you see the secret ending?" I was like, "What? No."
Yeah.
Basically, after the game, you go back to their house and they like, "Oh, we're so tired. Let's go to sleep." And then you both have a dream that like it says like several years later, and like you wake up. Oh, was it 3?
3 specific. Yeah, 3 years
3
later.
specific. And you like are woken up by this massive like thunderstorm, and immediately you're just like, "Oh my god, it's Thor!" But
Yeah,
then
Thor's here.
you go, and then you're like, wake up and Travis is like, "Boy, get up," and all this, and you run outside and open the door, and there's just this dude standing there. And he's like, he's got like the winged helmet thing going on, like all these huge, heavy, like fur cloaks, very shrouded in mystery. You don't see his face, but then you just see, which I thought was an excellent reveal, similar to like with how they did with the Leviathan axe. It like the camera like moves to this character's side, and he pulls back his cloak, and you see Mjolnir, and like lightning and thunder flash from it, and you're just like,
Yeah.
here we
So
go.
on that specifically, like, do you think that Thor will be a bad guy in the next one?
Oh, absolutely.
You think so?
I bet if it follows the path of the previous ones, Thor will be like the big bad of the next one,
And then you'll have
it will
to take
probably
on
end with
Odin.
you killing Thor,
Okay.
and then if they do another installment in this series, or they could probably shoehorn it all into the same game, but Odin will be like the final, or maybe an Odin Freya matchup. Well, basically like double team, try and take you out kind of thing. Who knows? But like, yeah,
Sure. Yeah. We'll see.
you're gonna fight Thor, and it's gonna be ridiculous. So that was a pretty
That was a cool moment.
yeah.
I'm gonna call it. So
Okay.
for the so this is like God of War 4, but there's probably gonna be a 5 and a 6, and they're all gonna be in the same timeline, right? So in 6, you're gonna get to the fight with Odin, right? And you're not gonna beat him. Odin's gonna go to Atreus and he's gonna be like, "Hey, your current dad blows."
I mean, he might. That's a
yeah,
very
and he's gonna be like, "You should join me, kid." And he's gonna be like, "Yeah, my dad does blow," and he's gonna join Odin, and they're totally gonna kill you.
No, I could see that.
I'm calling it. That's
Yeah.
definite. I'm
or at
correct.
least be a part of it, and then like maybe the game ends where you you play as Atreus after you've like killed Kratos
and
or
then
mortally
you get to
wounded
kill
Kratos, and then you're like, "Oh,
Kratos.
I messed up," and then you go take on Odin and stuff like that.
I would be shocked if Kratos doesn't die in the second one.
yeah,
I think they're building toward Atreus being the main character,
Yeah,
being
I
who
think so
you
too.
play as.
Because-
Like you get to train him through as he grows up, and then something happens and Kratos dies, and now
Yeah.
you are Atreus, the result of that training.
and because I'm pretty sure I read somewhere, around the time when the game came out, that Cory Barlog said that like they've opened the possibility because they've already changed like realms once that they might do it again.
So that's the other thing that I
Yeah.
was saying. Like, you obviously don't know how you go from the times of Greek mythology to Norse times, essentially.
Right.
Different part of the world. How did that
Sure.
happen? So I'm very interested to see, like, for all you know, with like when you die, you go to the next like age of
Next
gods
pantheon
and titans or
and stuff like
something.
that,
So
yeah.
maybe
They did reference in the game in what was the god who
Tyr?
He was the
Tyr,
one that was
yeah.
actually, I forget who it was, but you see symbols from other
Yeah,
cultures.
Yeah, and Tyr's vault.
See, they're symbols for war, and Egypt shows up.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah, I would
Egypt.
love to see Japanese kami show up. Like,
Yeah.
there's a million different belief systems with a million different gods. You can go anywhere.
Right. Which would be really cool if like it travels with Atreus and he goes to like a different one.
Yeah, I like the idea of like when you die, that's when you go to the next one. So maybe
That's kinda
Kratos
cool.
dies,
Sure.
and that's how he goes
Yeah,
to
why
Egypt
not?
or something.
Yeah, which Egypt would be pretty awesome. I mean, you got a little taste of that with Assassin's Creed Origins, but like that'd be awesome to see it explored in the God of
Yeah.
War arena.
Yep.
But yeah, I think to kind of like wrap it up, it was a huge tonal shift. I felt like from previous God of War series, but knocked it out of the park. Like Cory Barlog, and I think Cory Barlog. I think was the right person to do it because he already had so much back knowledge of the rest of the series.
Yeah.
He knew how
Yeah.
to perfectly marry the new with the old, like you were talking about earlier,
Right.
Fox, to create this brand new feeling game that had a mature like obviously the older games were mature because they were so violent and gory. This one had like a matured story, a more like a very emotional journey that you had to go from not just being really mad to a lot more mad at the end, like with the previous game. So it's just a masterful, crafting. The art direction, everything about it was just outstanding. So yes, if you haven't played this game yet, please go do it. Hopefully, Mogan. I mean, if you had any interest in playing it at all, hopefully we didn't kill it by basically telling you everything about the game.
I'm holding out for when you get to kill Kratos as Travis, as I call him. So I'm waiting.
Yeah, all right. You'll just go back and play the remastered trilogy when it comes out again.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm waiting.
Just holding out. It's the long game.
Dude, it'll only be $20. I'll get all the DLC. I'm just gonna wait it out.
All right. Well, before we go, we do have to do our last little bit of the show, which is our soundtrack spotlight, which we would be remiss when talking about God of War to not mention
Super Mario Odyssey.
No, not that. We would be remiss to not talk about Bear McCreary's fantastic score for God of War. I don't know how much you're into listening to soundtracks, really, Fox, but like,
it's fairly often.
It's. This one was incredible. And this one I waited until I beat the game before I listened to because I wanted to experience this in the game, like hear those tracks that I really wanted to listen to, then go back and listen to the whole soundtrack as a whole and experience those tracks in a different way. There are several standout tracks, like God of War, the main new God of War theme is incredible because you should go watch on PlayStation Blog. They have a video series, or on their YouTube, a short video with interviewing Bear McCreary about his process for creating the music. And he talks about like having to go find this Icelandic choir that can sing in this deep Norse language, like old Norse language. And that's what he uses like the main vocals for a lot of this stuff, which just builds this truly powerful like main theme, which is going to coincidentally be the soundtrack spotlight that we're going to focus on for this one. But other like good tracks are Deliverance, Ashes, The Summit. Those have some memories of Mother. Just some great tracks with some truly excellent, especially like, again, as I've said, any track that throws in some great vocals, I'm going to be all about. And this one, those tracks have some fantastic, just everything about it. So go listen also to the soundtrack by Bear McCreary. It's great. But I think with that, it's about time to draw this episode and review of God of War to a close. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Michael, thank you for giving us your insight. Fox, thanks for joining us for the first time. And
and all
that. It was great to have you on. So again, check out Fox with his YouTube channel, Des and Fox Plays, and all their shows and videos that you can go watch there over on their YouTube channel. And we'll be back next week with another new episode. But until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Jerrett Wilson, joined by Rachel Mogan.
Adios.
Michael Koploy.
See ya.
And Fox.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you all next time. Stick around for the song.